Sometimes I come home from work after just 2 hours of clocking in. My boss has no idea, my coworkers have no idea, and the security cameras delete everything every 3 days. What started as efficient work habits turned into the most liberating job experience of my life, and a complete revelation about how broken the modern workplace really is. I'm Fletcher, and I'm 26 years old. This story is about discovering that sometimes the system is so broken that you can either let it crush your soul, or you can find a way to make it work for you in ways nobody ever intended. Let me take you back to how this whole situation began, because understanding my previous work experience is crucial to appreciating just how revolutionary this arrangement became for me. 2 years ago, I was trapped in what I can only describe as corporate hell, a soul-crushing call center in Phoenix called Customer Solutions Unlimited, where I spent 8 miserable hours a day getting screamed at by angry customers while being monitored by supervisors who treated bathroom breaks like federal crimes. The call center environment was designed to strip away every ounce of human dignity and autonomy. We had exactly 17 minutes of break time per 4-hour shift, not including a 30-minute unpaid lunch break. Every phone call was recorded and reviewed by quality assurance teams who seemed to take sadistic pleasure in finding reasons to criticize our performance. We were required to maintain specific call times, hit certain sales targets, and follow scripted responses that made us sound like poorly programmed robots. The worst part wasn't even the angry customers. Though dealing with people screaming about billing errors and service outages for 8 hours straight was genuinely traumatic. The worst part was the constant surveillance and micromanagement. Supervisors roamed the call floor with clipboards, timing how long we spent between calls, monitoring our computer screens, and listening to our conversations through headset monitoring systems. Taking too long to look up account information resulted in coaching sessions. Deviating from the approved script led to formal write-ups. Even our bathroom breaks were tracked and questioned if they exceeded the allotted time. I was making $11.50 per hour with no benefits, no paid time off, and no hope of advancement, unless I wanted to become one of the supervisors who made everyone else's life miserable. The job was slowly destroying my mental health, my relationships, and my sense of self-worth. I'd come home every day feeling defeated and angry, with no energy left for anything that mattered to me personally. But I needed the income, and in Phoenix's competitive job market, finding something better seemed impossible without connections or specialized skills I didn't possess. I felt trapped in a cycle where I was too exhausted from my terrible job to pursue education or training that might lead to better opportunities. The call center had become a prison that kept me barely financially stable while preventing any real progress toward a better life. The job posting that changed everything appeared on a random Tuesday while I was scrolling through employment websites during my 30-minute lunch break. Hiding in my car to avoid the depressing atmosphere of the break room, warehouse inventory specialist, independent work environment, minimal supervision required, competitive pay and benefits. Those words felt like they were written specifically for someone desperate to escape micromanagement hell. The company, Meridian Supply Solutions, operated a small distribution center on the outskirts of town that handled specialty parts for industrial equipment. According to their website, they'd been in business for 15 years. Serving manufacturing companies throughout the Southwest with hard-to-find mechanical components and specialized tools. The job posting was refreshingly honest about what they were looking for. Someone reliable who could work independently without constant oversight. I applied immediately, crafting a cover letter that emphasized my ability to work without supervision and my experience with inventory management from a brief stint at a hardware store during college. Within 2 days, I received a call from the hiring manager, a woman named Claudette Morrison, who sounded refreshingly normal compared to the corporate robots I'd been dealing with at the call center. "We're a small operation," Claudette explained during our initial phone conversation. "We don't have the resources for extensive training programs or constant management oversight. We need someone who can figure things out independently and take ownership of their responsibilities without someone looking over their shoulder all day." Her words sounded like a description of paradise after months of suffocating supervision. The interview took place on a Thursday afternoon at the warehouse facility, a modest single-story building surrounded by a chain-link fence in an industrial area about 20 minutes from downtown Phoenix. Claudette met me at the front entrance, a woman in her 50s with graying hair, pulled back in a practical ponytail, and an air of no-nonsense competence that I immediately respected. "Let me show you around," she said, unlocking the front door with a set of keys that seemed to contain more keys than any reasonable person should need. The previous guy who had this position left us pretty suddenly. So we're looking for someone who can jump in and learn the systems quickly, without a lot of hand-holding. The warehouse was larger than it appeared from outside, with rows of industrial shelving stretching toward the back of the building, filled with carefully organized bins containing thousands of different mechanical parts. The inventory ranged from tiny screws and gaskets worth pennies to specialized hydraulic components that cost hundreds of dollars each. Everything was labeled with barcode stickers and organized prod, according to a system that seemed logical but would clearly require time to master. "We get shipments twice a week, usually on Tuesdays and Fridays," Claudette explained as we walked through the aisles. "Your main job is receiving those shipments, updating our inventory management system, and processing outgoing orders for customers. We also need someone to maintain the organization of the warehouse and handle basic administrative tasks like answering phones and responding to email inquiries." The office area was a small space near the front of the building containing 2 outdated desktop computers, a printer that looked like it belonged in a museum, and filing cabinets that appeared to contain years' worth of paperwork. One computer was connected to the inventory management software, while the other handled email, web browsing, and general administrative tasks. The setup was basic but functional, exactly what you'd expect from a small business focused on operations rather than appearances. "The work schedule is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Claudette continued. "You'll be working alone most of the time, which is why we need someone who's comfortable with independence and can stay motivated without constant supervision. I try to stop by once every few months to check on things and drop off supplies. But otherwise, you'll have complete autonomy to manage your time and responsibilities however works best." The pay offer was significantly better than the call center, $18 per hour with health insurance, 2 weeks of paid vacation, and the possibility of performance bonuses based on inventory accuracy and customer satisfaction. But, more importantly, the job offered something I'd been craving for months: freedom from micromanagement and the opportunity to work at my own pace, without someone constantly monitoring my every move. During the interview, Claudette walked me through the basic procedures for receiving shipments, showed me how the inventory software worked, and explained the filing system for customer orders. The processes seemed straightforward, though I could see that mastering the inventory system would require time and attention to detail. The warehouse contained thousands of different items, each with specific part numbers, supplier codes, and storage locations that needed to be maintained accurately. "The most important thing is accuracy," Claudette emphasized. "Our customers depend on us to have the right parts in stock when they need them, and they're usually dealing with equipment breakdowns or urgent repairs. A mistake in our inventory system can cost them thousands of dollars in downtime, so attention to detail is crucial." She also explained the security setup, which consisted of several cameras positioned throughout the warehouse and a basic alarm system that I'd need to arm each evening before leaving. "The cameras are mainly for insurance purposes," she said. "The recording system automatically overwrites old footage every few days to save storage space. And honestly, we've never had any security issues. This is a pretty quiet area, and most people don't even know what kind of business we run here." When Claudette offered me the position at the end of the interview, I accepted immediately, despite having only a vague understanding of what my daily routine would actually involve. After months of rigid structure and constant supervision, the promise of autonomy and independence felt worth any uncertainty about specific job duties. "You'll figure it out as you go," she assured me. "The previous guy left some notes, and I'll be available by phone if you run into any problems you can't solve." My first day at Meridian Supply Solutions felt like stepping into an alternate universe after the oppressive atmosphere of the call center. I arrived at 7:55 a.m., unlocked the building with my shiny new set of keys, and found myself standing alone in a warehouse that was completely, blissfully quiet. No phones ringing constantly, no supervisors prowling around with clipboards, no artificial urgency or manufactured stress. Just me, thousands of organized parts, and the freedom to figure out how to make everything work. The previous employee, whose name was apparently Derek, had left behind a 3-ring binder containing handwritten notes about daily procedures, supplier contact information, and various tips for navigating the inventory software. His handwriting was terrible, but the information was comprehensive enough to give me a starting point for understanding the job requirements. He'd also left sticky notes on various pieces of equipment with instructions like this: printer jams if you don't lift the paper tray, and call Tony at Southwestern Parts if hydraulic orders seem weird. My first week was a learning curve that felt manageable rather than overwhelming. I spent time familiarizing myself with the warehouse layout, reading through Derek's notes, and experimenting with the inventory software until I understood how to process incoming shipments and update product quantities. The system was older and less intuitive than modern software, but it was functional and contained detailed records going back several years. The work itself was surprisingly engaging, at least initially. Each shipment was like solving a puzzle, matching incoming parts to purchase orders, verifying quantities and part numbers, and finding the correct storage locations for everything. The inventory software required careful attention to detail, but it wasn't complicated once I understood the logic behind the organization system. Most items had multiple possible locations depending on size and frequency of use. And Derek's notes contained valuable insights about the most efficient storage strategies. Customer orders were equally straightforward. The system generated picking lists that told me exactly which items to retrieve from which locations. And I'd pack everything carefully before creating shipping labels and scheduling pickups with various delivery services. The customers were generally pleasant to deal with, since they were usually grateful to find suppliers who carried the specialized parts they needed for equipment repairs. During my second week, I began to notice something interesting about the workload. Despite Claudette's description of the job as full-time work requiring constant attention, I was consistently finishing all necessary tasks well before the end of my 8-hour shift. Processing shipments took about an hour on average. Updating inventory records required maybe 30 minutes, and handling customer orders consumed another hour at most. Even on busy days with larger shipments, I rarely needed more than 3 hours to complete everything thoroughly and accurately. This left me with significant amounts of unstructured time during every shift, which initially made me nervous. At the call center, having nothing to do would have resulted in immediate assignment of additional tasks or criticism for not staying busy. But at the warehouse, there was nobody to assign additional work, and Claudette had explicitly told me to manage my time however I thought best. I started using the extra hours to organize and improve the warehouse systems, reorganizing storage areas and updating Derek's documentation with clearer instructions. The isolation that might have bothered some people quickly became my favorite aspect of the job. After months of working in a noisy call center surrounded by dozens of stressed coworkers, the quiet of the warehouse felt therapeutic. I could work at my own pace, take breaks when I needed them, and focus completely on tasks without constant interruptions or surveillance. The absence of office politics and interpersonal drama was incredibly refreshing. By my third week, I'd established efficient routines for all the basic job functions and was consistently completing necessary work in less than half my scheduled time. I began using the extra hours for personal development, bringing books to read, and studying for professional certifications that might advance my career. The warehouse had reliable internet access, so I started taking online courses in supply chain management, project management, and business administration. The office area became my private classroom, and I was essentially being paid to improve my skills while still fulfilling all my job responsibilities perfectly. I'd process the morning shipment in about an hour, spend 2 hours studying or reading, handle any customer orders that came in during the afternoon, and then continue my personal education until it was time to close up and go home. It felt like I'd discovered a secret loophole in the employment system. Claudette made her first visit during my 4th week, arriving unannounced around midday with a box of office supplies and forms that needed to be filed. She spent about 15 minutes reviewing basic metrics, checking the organization of the warehouse, and asking if I had any questions about procedures or systems. "You seem to have everything under control," she observed, flipping through inventory reports that showed perfect accuracy. "The previous guy took months to get this organized. You're doing great work." Her casual approval confirmed what I'd suspected, as long as the numbers looked good and customers weren't complaining. She had no interest in micromanaging my daily activities. She didn't ask how I spent my time, didn't inquire about my productivity methods, and showed no curiosity about the details of my work routine. The visit lasted less than 20 minutes, and she left with a reminder to call if I needed anything. That's when I began to understand the true nature of my position. I wasn't just working independently, I was working in complete isolation with virtually no oversight, accountability, or supervision. The building was mine from the moment I unlocked it in the morning until I locked it again at night. Nobody tracked my activities, nobody monitored my productivity through software or cameras, and nobody seemed particularly interested in anything beyond basic performance metrics. The security camera system, which I'd initially assumed was being monitored remotely, turned out to be purely for insurance and liability purposes. The recording equipment was ancient and had limited storage capacity, automatically overwriting old footage every 3 days. I realized this when I accidentally damaged a small display rack during my first month, cleaned up the mess, and never heard a word about it from anyone. If the cameras had been monitored, someone would have noticed the incident and asked questions. After 2 months of consistent performance and continued isolation, I decided to test the boundaries of my autonomy in a small way. On a particularly slow Tuesday, when I'd finished all my work by 10:30 a.m., I drove to a nearby coffee shop to get lunch instead of eating the sandwich I'd brought from home. I was gone for about 45 minutes, and when I returned, nothing had changed. No missed calls, no visitors, no evidence that anyone had noticed my absence. That small experiment planted the seed of an idea that Plaid would eventually transform my entire relationship with traditional employment. If I could leave for lunch without anyone noticing, what else might be possible in terms of optimizing my schedule around actual work requirements rather than arbitrary time expectations? The revelation that changed everything came during my 5th month on the job. On a day when shipments were delayed and I found myself with almost nothing to do after 11 a.m., I'd already completed all pending customer orders, organized several storage areas that didn't really need organizing, and updated documentation that was already current. I was facing nearly 6 hours of empty time with no meaningful work left to accomplish. That's when I made the decision that would redefine my understanding of work-life balance. I locked up the warehouse, drove home to my apartment, and spent the afternoon working on a freelance graphic design project that I'd been struggling to find time for. At 4:30 p.m., I returned to the building, unlocked the doors, and prepared to clock out at my normal time as if I'd been there all day. The psychological impact of that first unauthorized departure was transformative. For the first time since starting my career, I felt like I had genuine control over my schedule and my time. I wasn't sitting in an office pretending to be busy or finding meaningless tasks to fill arbitrary hours. I was using my time efficiently and living my life on my own terms while still exceeding every professional obligation and performance standard. More importantly, I realized that my productivity and job performance hadn't suffered at all from the abbreviated schedule. The warehouse operated just as smoothly, customers received the same excellent service, and inventory accuracy remained perfect. The only difference was that I'd reclaimed several hours of my life that would otherwise have been wasted on pointless busy work. That afternoon of freedom became the beginning of a systematic restructuring of my work life. I began keeping detailed records of exactly how long each task required, looking for ways to optimize my efficiency and eliminate unnecessary steps. I mapped out the busiest and slowest periods of each week, identifying opportunities for flexible scheduling that wouldn't impact business operations. Within 2 weeks, I felt confident enough to make my first planned departure during work hours. On a Wednesday when I'd completed everything by noon, I drove home and spent 3 hours working on online coursework for a project management certification I was pursuing. I returned to the warehouse at 4:45 p.m., locked up as usual, and maintained the appearance of a normal workday. The key to making this system sustainable was maintaining absolutely perfect performance on all my actual job responsibilities. I never let inventory accuracy slip, never missed shipment deadlines, never left customer inquiries unanswered, and never gave Claudette any reason to question my productivity or reliability. In fact, my efficiency improvements meant that the warehouse was running more smoothly than it had in years. According to comments from suppliers and customers who mentioned that orders were being processed faster than ever, I also developed sophisticated strategies for managing the risks associated with unexpected visits or emergencies. Since I was the only person with keys to the building, anyone who wanted to inspect the facility or deliver supplies had to coordinate with me in advance or call first. This advance warning system gave me complete control over when supervision might occur and allowed me to plan my schedule around any potential oversight. On the rare occasions when someone called while I was away from the warehouse, I had plausible explanations ready. I'm out getting lunch, I'm at the bank making a deposit, or I'm meeting with a supplier, were all perfectly reasonable excuses for temporary absences that any solo employee might need to make during regular business hours. The isolation that had initially seemed like a potential drawback became my greatest professional asset. My unconventional arrangement also gave me profound insights into how inefficiently most traditional jobs are structured. The standard 8-hour workday made sense in manufacturing environments where workers operated machinery for set periods, but it made no sense for task-based work that could be completed efficiently in much less time. I was living proof that productivity and presence were completely different metrics that had somehow become confused in modern workplace culture. I started calculating the real value of my reclaimed time and realized I was essentially getting a 75% increase in my personal time without any decrease in income or job performance. Instead of spending 40 hours per week sitting in a warehouse with nothing productive to do, I was working efficiently for about 12 hours and using the remaining 28 hours for education, personal projects, side businesses, and actual living. The financial benefits extended far beyond my regular salary. The extra time allowed me to pursue freelance graphic design projects, complete professional certifications that increased my market value, and launch a small online business selling custom artwork. My total income increased by about 60% within 6 months. While my stress levels dropped dramatically because I wasn't constantly watching clocks or pretending to be busy, my physical and mental health improved significantly as well. I was getting more sleep because I wasn't dreading work every morning, exercising regularly because I had time for gym visits during off-peak hours, and maintaining social relationships that had suffered during my call center days. The warehouse job that had seemed like a temporary escape from micromanagement, hell had become the foundation for a completely redesigned lifestyle. About 8 months into this routine, I experienced what felt like a serious close call that tested the sustainability of my system. Claudette arrived for one of her quarterly visits on a day when I happened to be at home. Having finished my work by 10:45 a.m. and decided to spend the afternoon deep cleaning my apartment, I saw her number on my phone and felt a moment of genuine panic before remembering that I had perfectly reasonable explanations for any absence. "I'm out running errands," I told her when I answered the call. "I had to go to the post office and pick up supplies from the hardware store. I'll be back in 20 minutes if you want to wait, or we can schedule a time that works better for your visit." The explanation was completely plausible since I was the only employee and had to leave the building for various business-related tasks anyway. Claudette waited in her car while I quickly drove back to the warehouse, unlocked the building, and prepared for her inspection. The visit proceeded completely normally, with her expressing satisfaction about inventory accuracy, warehouse organization, and customer feedback. "You're doing excellent work here," she said, reviewing reports that showed continued improvement in processing times and order accuracy. "Keep up whatever you're doing, it's clearly working." That incident reinforced my confidence in the system while also highlighting the importance of maintaining detailed contingency plans for unexpected situations. I realized how thoroughly I'd mastered the art of managing appearances while maximizing my actual freedom and productivity. The job required results, not presence. But the traditional employment structure assumed that time spent in the building automatically equated to productive work. As my confidence grew, I became more strategic and ambitious about how I used my liberated time. I completed 3 professional certifications, learned web development and digital marketing, and expanded my freelance business to include multiple income streams. The warehouse became my base of operations for a portfolio career that generated significantly more income and satisfaction than any traditional single job could provide. I also began networking with other professionals who had found ways to optimize their work arrangements. Discovering that my situation was more common than I'd initially realized, many remote workers, consultants, and people in loosely supervised positions had found ways to maximize their efficiency and reclaim control over their schedules. The difference was that most people were afraid to admit they'd figured out how to work smarter rather than harder. The psychological transformation was as significant as the practical benefits. I felt like I'd escaped the fundamental trap of modern employment, where your value is measured by hours rather than outcomes. I was living proof that many jobs could be restructured to prioritize efficiency and results over arbitrary time requirements. But most organizations were too invested in outdated management philosophies to consider such changes. My situation also provided unique insights into workplace surveillance and the illusion of oversight that characterizes many modern jobs. The security cameras that recorded everything but automatically deleted footage seemed like a perfect metaphor for corporate monitoring systems. Lots of impressive technology with very little actual supervision or review. The appearance of surveillance often matters more than the reality of surveillance in maintaining workplace discipline. After 18 months of this arrangement, I'd become so efficient at my core responsibilities that I could complete them in even less time when necessary. Emergency situations or unusual shipments that might have stressed other employees became minor inconveniences that I could handle quickly before returning to my personal projects. I had transformed a mundane warehouse job into a platform for building the career and lifestyle I actually wanted. The most surprising aspect of this entire experience was how little guilt or ethical conflict I felt about my unconventional approach. I was delivering measurably better results than my predecessor, maintaining perfect attendance and reliability, and exceeding every quantifiable performance standard the company had established. The fact that I accomplished this in a fraction of the allocated time seemed like a testament to my efficiency and problem-solving abilities rather than any form of theft or deception. I also came to understand that my approach was probably more honest than the standard office worker. Routine of stretching simple tasks to fill entire days. How many traditional employees spend hours each day on personal websites, social media, extended lunch breaks, or meaningless busy work designed to look productive? How many people have meetings that could be emails, create reports that nobody reads, or attend training sessions for skills they'll never use? At least my system was transparent about the reality of modern work efficiency. While delivering exceptional results for my employer, instead of pretending to be busy for 40 hours a week, I completed my work efficiently and used the remaining time for genuine productivity that benefited both my career development and my overall quality of life. The key insight that made this arrangement psychologically sustainable was recognizing that I had genuine autonomy to optimize my schedule around results rather than appearances. My job was to ensure that shipments were processed accurately, inventory was maintained properly, and customers received excellent service. How I accomplished those objectives, and how much time it took, was ultimately irrelevant as long as the outcomes met or exceeded expectations. 2 years into this arrangement, I've never been caught, questioned, or criticized for my performance. Claudette continues her quarterly visits, always expressing satisfaction with how smoothly the warehouse operates and how much customer feedback has improved since I started. The facility runs more efficiently than ever. Inventory accuracy has reached levels that exceed industry standards, and the business has grown measurably due to improved service quality and faster order processing. I've used the liberated time to complete a bachelor's degree in business administration, launch a successful digital marketing consultancy, and develop skills that have increased my total earning potential by more than 150%. The warehouse job that seemed like a temporary escape from corporate misery has become the foundation for financial independence and career satisfaction I never thought possible. The transformation extends beyond professional achievements to encompass my entire approach to work-life integration. I've learned that efficiency shouldn't be punished with additional busy work, that results matter infinitely more than appearances, and that many traditional workplace structures exist primarily for management, comfort rather than actual business necessity or productivity optimization. I've also discovered that autonomy and trust are incredibly powerful motivators that most employers underutilize. When you're truly responsible for outcomes rather than just following detailed instructions, you tend to take greater pride in your work and find more creative solutions to problems. The absence of micromanagement has made me a significantly better employee, not a lazier one. My experience has fundamentally altered my perspective on what work should look like and how productivity should be measured in the modern economy. The 8-hour workday might have made sense during the Industrial Revolution, but it often creates inefficiency, resentment, and waste in knowledge-based or task-oriented roles that can be completed more effectively in less time. I've been extremely careful not to become overconfident or careless about maintaining this arrangement. I still arrive and leave at consistent times to maintain appearances, keep detailed records of all my activities and achievements, and continue delivering exceptional results that justify the trust and autonomy I've been given. The goal has never been to get away with something, but rather to optimize a system that was already working poorly for everyone involved. The most valuable lesson from this entire experience is that sometimes the best opportunities emerge from situations that initially seemed disappointing or mundane. What appeared to be a simple warehouse job with basic responsibilities turned out to be a chance to completely redesign my approach to work-life balance, professional development, and financial planning. Today, as I sit in my home office completing consulting projects while technically being at work, I feel profound gratitude for the circumstances that led to this arrangement. I've proven to myself that it's possible to meet all professional obligations while maintaining complete control over your schedule, priorities, and career development. The warehouse continues running exactly as it has for the past 2 years, with Claudette making her quarterly visits and expressing continued satisfaction with performance metrics that consistently exceed expectations. Sometimes the best jobs are the ones that give you the freedom to define success for yourself. Optimize your efficiency around results rather than appearances, and create space for the life you actually want to live. And sometimes coming home after just 2 hours of work isn't laziness or deception. It's the ultimate expression of professional efficiency and personal optimization in a world that has forgotten the difference between productivity and presence.